A very good morning. You are watching Rajya Sabha television. I'm Smriti Rastogi with breakfast news. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. India and Panama sign MOUs for visa exemption for diplomatic and official passport holders, and in agriculture, unprecedented gesture by Panama President accompanies Vice President Naidu on visit to Panama Canal, spends nearly 6 hours with visiting dignitary. Curtains to draw on the Karnataka campaign at 5 p.m. today, voting in 223 out of 224 assembly seats to take place on Saturday. Election Commission decision on further action following voter ID card seizure in Bengaluru likely. Parliamentary panel asks government to ensure Indian users are not forced to sign terms of consent on social media platforms. Panel looking into breach of user data by political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica. Nine people killed in Uttar Pradesh in Wednesday's thunderstorm, light rains and storms in several other parts of North India. And 92-year-old former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad, topples six-decade-old government, scores stunning political comeback as he ousts Najib Razak in general elections. Our top focus is the Vice President's visit to Panama. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu visited the historic Panama Canal along with the Panama President Juan Carlos Varela. The President of Panama broke protocol and accompanied the Vice President on his visit to Canal. He spent about 6 hours with Vice President, which is almost a full working day. Vice President Naidu called the canal an engineering marvel and lauded the efforts of people involved in its construction.
Mr. President, you've accompanied our Vice President of India to the Panama Canal. You had a busy schedule. What made you accompany our Vice President? Could you please tell us first?
First, I'm very happy to receive Vice President Naidu and all his delegation. It's the most important visit by an Indian official to our country. So for us, it's a sign of the government of India, Prime Minister Modi and Vice President Naidu, that of the interest of building a stronger relationship between India and Panama. So I'm very happy to come with him and show him the canal, which is the main asset of our country, and also the rainforests that protect the water that support the function of the Panama Canal. And also we expect to increase our bilateral relationship with India. After this visit, we have a very good meeting today at the palace, and I'm pretty sure that India and Panama will be working very closely to bring a better future for their own people. So I'm really happy to be with him at the canal.
Hold on, sir. Mr. Vice President, could you please tell us how were your talks with the President of Panama?
Very meaningful, very purposeful. We covered a very wide range of issues, and the President was open, he was forthcoming, and he was also keen to engage with India and also encourage Indian investments here and also invest in India also. And we have discussed a wide range of issues, and we have signed 2 MOUs also. And then this will be taken further by our ambassador here. And I am really very happy that the President and Vice President, leaving the protocol aside, coming to the Panama Canal, because Panama Canal is really wonder of the world. Secondly, it's the lifeline of this country. Thirdly, it connects America, the Atlantic and Pacific, and these oceans, 2 oceans coming together at one place. And even in 1904, when the construction has taken place, there were Indians. One of the gentlemen was telling that he has the black and white photographs also. I felt very happy. Wherever there is development, there is some role for Indians also.
Mr. President, could you please tell us the contribution of Panama Canal to world transport, trade and cargo?
Panama is a country that unites the world. Our geographic position defines our foreign policy of uniting, bringing people together. We are the great connection. So Panama is the most important, this route is the most important for trade, for world trade. And also we are showing today to the Vice President the hospitality of our country, the heart of our people, and we open the doors of our country for Indian businessmen, Indian tourists that want to visit Panama, and from Panama expand their presence in the Latin American, Central American and Caribbean region. So Panama is the best gateway for Latin America, for India, and that's the main reason of this meeting today. And we have agreed different topics that I'm sure that will help us build a stronger relationship.
Thank you, President.
Meanwhile, India and Panama have signed 2 pacts after talks between the President of Panama and Vice President of India. The 2 countries have resolved to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations.
Strengthening ties and extending cooperation to a new level. India and Panama inked MOUs on exemption of visas for holders of diplomatic and official passports and agriculture in the presence of Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, President of Panama Juan Carlos Varela Rodriguez, and Vice President and Foreign Minister of Panama in Panama City.
At the end of the discussions, an MOU on visa exemption for diplomatic, official and consular passports was signed. There was a work plan on cooperation in agriculture that was signed. There was an agreement to establish a parliamentary friendship group for the entire Latin American region from the Indian side, which would of course include Panama. Then 2 lines of credit were announced by Government of India, by Honorable Vice President. One is a $10 million line of credit for in biotechnology, and the other is a $15 million credit line in innovation sector.
After receiving the Vice President at the palace, President and Vice President of Panama held 4-hour-long high-level delegation talks with him and discussed matters of crucial bilateral importance. Later, in a joint statement issued by Vice President of India along with the President of Panama, the Vice President said India and Panama always had cordial ties. Both countries resolved to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations.
I had very useful, meaningful, constructive discussions with the President Varela, which covered all aspects of our relations, including bilateral, regional and multilateral issues. Our interactions highlighted our common value for democracy, pluralism and inclusive development. It also reflected the spirit of solidarity, cooperation and mutual respect. We resolved to fight the scourge of terrorism in all its forms and manifestation, and agreed to strengthen cooperation in combating terrorism in the international fora.
Vice President Naidu lauded Panama for including India for strengthening relations in its Falcon policies. He also said the 2 centers, one for biodiversity and innovation, will be set up by India in Panama worth $10 million and $15 million each.
President of Panama pointed out that in their new foreign policy, which is called the Falcon policy, they have in fact identified India as an important partner with which they would like to do business. He definitely once again reiterated an interest in inviting the participation of the Indian professionals in further growth and development of Panama, and to that direction, the President informed our Vice President that they had introduced new laws that would encourage greater investments in their colon-free zone, and also eased their visa policies to allow greater Indian participation, Indian business, Indian tourism into Panama. So those were very important elements.
The Vice President further added that in order to boost cooperation in key areas, both the countries have agreed to strengthen cooperation in tax information, economic cooperation, air services, traditional medicines, culture and space.
Vice President of India M. Venkaiah Naidu has held high-level talks with the President and Vice President of Panama, and both the nations have agreed to extend cooperation in fields of taxation, biodiversity and all other crucial issues. In a joint statement, both the leaders have condemned all forms of terror and have decided to act against the menace of terror globally. With camera person Prashanta Karmakar, I'm Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV from the city of Panama.
And to get more inputs on this, we'll go across to our correspondent Raj Rao, who is joining us live from the Panama City. Raj, what was the outcome of the talks between the Vice President and the President of Panama?
Vice President of India and Panama President and the delegation has held high-level talks in Panama City at Presidential Palace today. Both the leaders have agreed to cooperate on issues like biodiversity, agriculture and exemption to visas for diplomatic passport holders, and other issues have also been discussed during the meeting. Later, both the leaders have visited the historic Panama Canal, where Vice President Venkaiah Naidu appreciated the engineering marvel of the canal and has appreciated the efforts of the laborers engineers who built the canal.
And Raj, also the visit to the Panama Canal was historic. The President of Panama broke the protocol there.
President of Panama broke his protocol and accompanied the Vice President on his way to Panama Canal. This can be perceived as his country's extending friendship to India, and he's also spoken to Rajya Sabha TV specially and has appreciated India's efforts and its reach out to Panama, especially on issues like taxation and economic cooperation. Both the leaders have agreed on mutual cooperative issues and have shown resolve to act against terror in all forms.
Thank you so much, Raj, for joining us and giving us all those inputs. And now let's get you all the news from the election-bound state of Karnataka. The high-voltage campaigning for the crucial Karnataka Assembly polls will come to an end today at 5 p.m. The political parties eyeing to sweep the polls will hold multiple rallies today in their last attempt to woo voters. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to have his last app interaction for the campaign. He will address SC/ST workers in the BJP through the Narendra Modi app. Prime Minister Modi has already used this dedicated app to speak to candidates, party workers and women earlier. Meanwhile, BJP Chief Amit Shah will participate in the roadshow in Karnataka. Chief Minister Siddaramaia's Badami constituency. A total of 2,655 candidates, including 219 women, are in the poll fray in the election. The election in Karnataka will be held on 12th of May in the 223 constituencies out of 224 of the Karnataka Legislative Assembly. The election for Jayanagar constituency has been postponed following the death of B.N. Vijay Kumar. Kumar was BJP candidate from Jayanagar. The counting of votes and announcement of result will take place on 15th of May. And for more on this, we'll go across to our correspondent Kriti Mishra, who is joining us from Mysuru. Kriti, a very good morning. Kriti, just few hours are left for the campaigning to end in Karnataka. What political equations do we see emerging in the state?
That's right, Smriti. The poll drums will fall silent today, and in the last day of campaign, parties would go full throttle with extensive electioneering powered by war of words. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi would interact with SC/ST Karyakartas of the BJP through Narendra Modi app, whereas BJP President Amit Shah would hold roadshow, and also Chief Ministers of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh would also hold roadshows in Karnataka. Meanwhile, Congress President will hold a press conference in Bengaluru, where he's expected to up the ante against the BJP on the voter ID scam. Remember, we saw, Smriti, in Karnataka a very high decibel and high octane campaign, specifically because it is extremely imperative for the Congress party, because after Punjab, this is the only second large state where the party is in power, and the BJP has been claiming that after Karnataka elections, the Congress would be reduced to Parivar, to Puducherry and to Punjab. So certainly the Congress party has pulled all stops to retain this state, while for the BJP, it has expanded its footprint throughout the country and now governs almost 22 out of 29 Indian states, and Karnataka is seen as the gateway for the party for South of India, while JDS, which has also been out of power for almost 10 years now, is fighting the battle for political relevance. So certainly very high stakes for all the political parties, but most of the pre-poll surveys have hinted that Karnataka is poised for a tight finish. But remember, Smriti, Karnataka has not favoured the ruling party for nearly 3 decades now, and it also bucks the the national trend. So it remains to be seen who becomes the czar in this complicated caste matrix in the state, which dominates the state, and also where issues like agrarian crisis, unemployment, development and water scarcity dominate the minds of the voters. Smriti?
Thank you so much, Kriti, for joining us and giving us all those inputs. So remember, today is the last day of campaigning in Karnataka. Political stakes are high. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed multiple rallies on Wednesday, accusing the Congress of destroying the future of the state. Taking a dig at the Congress president, Prime Minister said that Rahul Gandhi believes that the Prime Minister's chair is reserved only for one family. His comments come a day after Rahul Gandhi said he was ready to occupy the Prime Minister's post if his party emerged as the biggest party in the 2019 Lok Sabha polls.
At a rally in Kolar's Bangarapet, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the ruling Congress is afflicted with 6 diseases that are destroying the state's future.
एक तो स्वयं में कांग्रेस कल्चर, दूसरा है कम्युनलिज्म, तीसरा है कास्टिज्म, चौथा है क्राइम, पांचवा है करप्शन, छठा है ठेकेदारी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिस्टम। ये 6 चीज कर्नाटक के भविष्य को बर्बाद कर रहे हैं।
Taking a dig at Congress President Rahul Gandhi, the Prime Minister said his assertion that he will be the next Prime Minister indicates his arrogance. The Prime Minister further said the time has come for them to bid goodbye to the Congress.
ये अहंकारी नामदार का खुद को प्रधानमंत्री घोषित करना, प्रधानमंत्री के उम्मीदवार घोषित करना, 19 में प्रधानमंत्री बन जाऊंगा, इसकी घोषणा कर देना, ये कांग्रेस की आंतरिक लोकशाही की पोल खोल देता है कि नहीं खोल देता है।
From Bangarapet, Prime Minister Modi moved his campaign rally to Chikmagalur. Referring to the ongoing fake voter ID row, Prime Minister asked the crowd to not forgive the Congress in the assembly elections. Modi alleged that the Congress was trying to win the polls by using fake voter ID cards.
परिवार में तो दूर दूर तक भी लोकतंत्र से कोई लेना देना नहीं है और इसलिए लोकतंत्र की हर बात को नकारने के, इनकार करने के वो मौके ढूंढते रहते हैं।
The Prime Minister has held over 20 rallies in Karnataka. The assembly elections in the state will be held on 12th of May and results will be announced on 15th May. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And Congress President Rahul Gandhi on Wednesday said that there is no contest between his party's government in Karnataka and the previous BJP regime when it came to corruption. He took to Twitter to show that the Congress party's rule was better on all counts and that it had also waived the loans of 22 lakh farmers in the southern state. Rahul pointed out that during the BJP rule in Karnataka, Chief Minister B.S. Yedurappa was jailed in connection with the denotification scam.
आज यहां पे विचारधारा की लड़ाई है। एक तरफ नफरत, एक तरफ भाईचारा, एक तरफ समाज को बांटने का काम, दूसरी तरफ समाज को जोड़ने का काम। कांग्रेस पार्टी ने आपको जोड़ने का काम किया है। प्यार से हम काम करते हैं, नफरत नहीं फैलाते हैं।
And 2 people were arrested after nearly 10,000 fake voter ID cards were seized from a flat in Rajya Rajeshwari Assembly seat in Bengaluru. The BJP demanded countermanding of the election while accusing the Congress of being behind the racket. The Congress refuted the charge. Meanwhile, the Election Commission, which is examining the case, may take a decision on further action by today.
A day after nearly 10,000 voter ID cards were found in a Bengaluru apartment, allegations of election rigging flowed swift and fast in the state. The top 2 contending parties leveled charges of foul play. The State Election Commission ordered an investigation into the recovery of over 9,700 electoral photo identity cards. 5 laptops and a printer were also recovered from the apartment in the Jalahali area of Rajeshwari Nagar constituency.
We are trying to get into what the truth is, but certainly no one has broken into our systems and creating any new ID cards or EPIC cards. That is ruled out. So it is just EPIC cards which are genuine. They are being collected from various voters.
Both BJP and Congress alleged that the flat belonged to people associated with their rivals. The BJP has demanded that the election in Rajeshwari Nagar constituency be countermanded. A Congress delegation led by Anand Sharma met Election Commission officials and demanded action against the BJP.
Malpractices of the BJP and a concerted attempt by the ruling party at the centre, with the active assistance of the central agencies, including the Income Tax Department, to subvert the process of free and fair elections, targeting of the Congress candidates.
Meanwhile, BJP leader and Union Minister Prakash Javadekar claimed that Congress candidate and sitting MLA Muniratan Naidu was behind the alleged racket. The BJP delegation also met the Election Commission.
जिस तरह से कोई फेक आईडी का फैक्ट्री बनी हुई कांग्रेस, उसके बारे में हमने काफी विस्तार से वहां पर बात करी और साथ ही साथ हमने मांग की है कि जो वहां पर एक पर्टिकुलर कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी है, उस कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में पुनः चुनाव कराया जाए, वहां चुनाव रद्द करके फिर से चुनाव वहां होना चाहिए और जो लोग उस पर रिस्पांसिबल है उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई हो.
An FIR has been filed in the matter and the police said investigations are continuing. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And the Supreme Court will hear a petition filed by Rashtriya Hindu Sena Chief Pramod Muthalik against the Congress manifesto for the Karnataka polls today. Muthalik has alleged that the Congress in its election manifesto in Karnataka was seeking votes in the name of religion. The petition also sought directions to Election Commission to delete the Congress party's alleged appeal in its manifesto. The plea has also sought disqualification of those Congress candidates who are allegedly seeking votes in the name of religion. Muthalik had on Wednesday approached the Supreme Court. And now the weather news. At least 9 people were killed in various parts of Uttar Pradesh in the thunderstorm that hit the state on Wednesday. Out of the 9, 3 people were from Mathura, 4 from Etawah and 1 from Agra. Another death was reported from Agra's Itmadpur area where a tree fell on a house, killing 1 person. In Delhi also, it witnessed sudden change of weather after light rain lashed in several parts. Met Department said gusty winds swept the city at 35 to 36 kilometers per hour. Light to moderate rains also lashed parts of Punjab and Haryana, including Chandigarh, leading to a sharp fall in temperature. Meanwhile, a severe storm accompanied by hail and rain hit Shimla and other parts of Himachal Pradesh. While the higher reaches of the state experienced snowfall, the hailstorm triggered traffic jams, snapped power supply, uprooted trees and blew off roofs in parts of Shimla district. A parliamentary panel looking into the breach of data by Cambridge Analytica has asked the government to ensure that Indian users should not be forced to sign terms of consent on social media platforms. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Information Technology, headed by BJP MP Anurag Thakur, was briefed by Union Home Secretary Rajiv Gauba and other senior officials on the subject of citizens' data security and privacy. The panel battled for greater freedom for Indian users against compulsory signing up of the Terms of Consent Agreement. Members said there is an urgent need to simplify this instead of forcing users to tick every box while installing an application. In aftermath of the data breach by the Cambridge Analytica, the members said the social media giants such as Facebook and Twitter should simplify their terms of use and privacy policy to make it transparent for the end user. And in an effort to promote electric vehicles in the country, the government has approved green license plates. Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari said the notification for the same might be issued over the next few days, providing for green-coloured number plates with letters in white. Green taxis, on the other hand, would have green number plates with the registration number in yellow. The purpose behind this distinctive number plates is their easy identification for preferential treatment in parking and benefits like concessional toll. Besides, the government is also contemplating permitting youth in the age group of 16 to 18 years to drive e-scooters, which are gearless, and this will lead to a big demand for e-scooters. And starting today, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will embark on a 2-day visit to Myanmar. During this visit, Swaraj will hold talks with the top leadership of Myanmar, and both sides are expected to ink several key agreements covering diverse aspects of the bilateral relations. Issue of cross-border activities, situation in Rakhine State are also likely to figure on the itinerary. Both sides are also expected to review the progress made on the decisions taken during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Myanmar in September 2017. And former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has scored a historic victory in the general election. At the age of 92, Mahathir defeated the Barisan National Coalition, which has been in power for 60 years. He had come out of retirement to take on his former protege Najib Razak, who has been behest by the allegations of corruption. The Election Commission said Mahathir's opposition alliance had won 115 seats over the threshold of 112 seats needed to form a government in the 222-member parliament. Mahathir will become the oldest elected leader in the world. Meanwhile, supporters poured on to the streets in the celebration post Mahathir's victory.
We are not seeking revenge. What we want to do is to restore the rule of law. If anybody breaks the law, and that includes the journalists, they will be brought before the court to be tried.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of Breakfast News. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television.